Hello everyone. It's been a long time. I haven't been around because I was a little busy with some stuff. By the way, new haircut, so hope you guys like it. But anyways, in this video we're going to talk about JQuery. So in order to actually basically use this video, you guys need to have learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because JQuery is basically a library for JavaScript and it helps us manipulate HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So make sure to check out my videos where I explain those three tools, and then come back here and learn this one. What is jQuery? As I said earlier, it's a library for JavaScript. It is, however, getting a little old because it uses the imperative kind of programming style, which is kind of being replaced by the declarative way of React and Vue. However, it is still a great way to start learning front-end development, and I would highly recommend that you learn how to use some features of jQuery because it really just helps you get started. jQuery also is a write less, do more sort of library, which just as the name implies, it helps you write less code and basically get more results using JavaScript. So, in order to start using it, there are two ways. The first one is downloading the jQuery file, and the second one is just using the jQuery CDN, which is basically a link which is going to point to where jQuery file is stored. And if you want to use the CDN, you basically don't have to host it yourself, which is a great perk. And the other perk is that if you use the CDN, it automatically matches the users to the nearest server where the CDN is hosted, which is definitely going to lead to faster load times. And the other perk is also that Google itself uses jQuery, which means that when the users have, well, a lot of users have used Google already, right? And that means that they've already downloaded the jQuery file, which means it's already cached in their browser, so that the next time somebody loads your website, which uses jQuery, they don't need to download it again, which is fantastic because jQuery can be a little too much in terms of size. So these are the perks of using the CDN of jQuery. But how do we actually use it? We just basically go to the releases page of jQuery. As you can see here, we click on minified. What is minified? It is basically, it doesn't have any spaces or any enters, any dead space, which leads to shorter size. And that's just great because instead of the users having to download 2 megabytes, they download 1 megabyte of the jQuery file, and that's it. So we're just going to basically use the minified version. We're going to copy this to clipboard. We're going to go to our index.html or jQuery.html in this case, and we're going to put it in our head file, in our head tag, sorry. And basically, you really need to be careful where you put this script tag because this script tag basically means you're requiring the jQuery code right now. And if you define any jQuery logic before this script, it's not going to work because you're defining the jQuery script here. So you should definitely put all your jQuery logic after this, so that the browser basically understands it, because it reads everything line by line. So that was a little bit of an extra tip. Now we have jQuery up and running. We're gonna save. Oh, by the way, this is the same file as the last time in the JavaScript form validation video that we had. So just to do a quick recap, if we go here and reload the website, this was a form with 2 steps, and on each step we had well, validations, meaning that some fields needed to be filled out in order to proceed to the next step. And also at the end, like some of the fields had to be filled out in order to submit the form. And that's about it. But as if you guys remember, it was kind of getting tedious in the index.js file, because we have all these document.get element by IDs here. And just imagine if we could make this a little shorter, our lives would have been just so much easier. So that's exactly what we're going to do. To show you guys a little bit of the beauty of jQuery, I'm going to start with the dollar sign. You guys might have seen it before. So instead of actually using document.getElement by ID, which is really long and ugly, we're going to use the dollar sign here. And inside of this parentheses and inside the quotes, we're going to put the hashtag or the pound sign, which is very similar to the way we use in CSS to actually select IDs. So we're just going to put a pound sign. If we were to select a class, we would use a dot. And if we were to select an element, we would just use nothing. So in this case, it is an ID. It is a div with the ID of next step. So we're going to use the pound sign and then dot add event listener here. This doesn't really work when it comes to jQuery because when you select something with jQuery, it uses a different way of object to actually grab that element. And it's not the same as JavaScript object. So you need to be careful how to use this. jQuery and JavaScript can be used together, but you've got to be careful how to use them. So when it comes to add event listener, you got to use the jQuery function, the equivalent jQuery function, which is on. So we're gonna say dot on instead, and then the same thing is gonna happen later. So it's gonna like on click, meaning that whenever a click happens on this element, we're gonna run this function, which is going to do all these. And if I save this right now and go reload the page, you guys can see that it's still working. And we just replaced the dot element get element by ID over here with a dollar sign. So and you guys can see that these still work with the jQuery function because jQuery is really nothing but JavaScript, but just simplified, right? It's the same as JavaScript. So now we can just go ahead and replace all these guys again by dollar sign, dollar pound, dollar pound. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. So we're done with that step, but now we have things like dot value is equal to this, which again is not going to work with the jQuery with the jQuery objects, which are these objects. So the way again jQuery selects these elements is different than JavaScript. So we can't just use these JavaScript properties. Instead, jQuery has some very simple defined functions which are going to help you with that. So instead of saying value dot value is equal to empty quotes, we're going to say dot val as a function, and then we're going to put the empty quotes here. And what does the val function do? It basically replaces the value of this element with what you put in the parentheses. Down here we have the inner text is equal to this. Again, dot inner text is specific to JavaScript, and in jQuery we have the dot text function. And inside the text function, we can just put this text, the desired text that we want. Just delete the rest, put it down inside here. So now what this is going to do is change the text of this input to or the text of this basically error. I believe it was an H1 or a paragraph, whatever it was. It's going to change the text to this. Same thing here. We're going to use the dot val is real quick. We're just basically transforming all the JavaScript here to jQuery. Again, dot inner text. We're going to change the text. Dot inner text is equal to, again, we have this dot text. Remember that if you don't do this, then your code is not going to work. You're going to have errors. Again, dot text. Sorry. Yeah. Same thing. Dot text. We're going to do this one real quick too. And now we've reached the dot style, the display. Again, for this, jQuery has some really nice way of manipulating the CSS, and that is using the dot CSS function. So what was that? That was display none, right? So instead of that, what we're going to do is say dot CSS and then display none. We're just going to use two properties, two parameters in this function. The first one is the CSS property you want to change, and the second one is the value of that property which you want to replace with. Same thing here. This one is display block, so we're just going to say dot CSS display and then block. Oops, no, block. Okay. Same thing. Style dot text dot CSS. Sorry, CSS text CSS again CSS and then CSS text. This is really nothing more than that. Down here we're going to change this again to on, and that's it. Same thing with these. I'm going to go ahead and transform this real quick for you guys. So we're done with that, but a couple of points that I really wanted to share with you guys. The first one is that I made a little mistake here, and that is I'm basically setting the value of this element to empty here, and we shouldn't really do that because we're checking if the value is equal to this. So instead of that, what we have to do is say if the value is equal to blank, because the value function, the val function, returns the value of that element. So be careful with that. Don't make that syntactical error. Same thing here. I made this mistake here as well, and I believe, let's see if I have this value. Okay, we don't have this anymore. So we're done with that. And the next point is that the this object, when you use it like this, it's the JavaScript form. And as you know by now, if you want to use the CSS function, you need to have the JQuery way of grabbing the elements. So instead, we're going to use the JQuery way of doing that, and that is using a dollar sign. So we're going to do it like this. So we're going to put wrap it inside the dollar sign. And the same thing with this. Go ahead and say this. Now we're going to save the file, and I believe this is going to work now. So yeah, let's go check it out. I'm going to reload the page. We're going to hit next. It says the first input cannot be empty. So we're going to put something here. Next, the second input cannot be empty. We're going to put something here too. And now we proceed to the next step. If we hit submit, it says nothing. That could be a little error, because if we remember, one of these, the select one cannot be empty, and that's what we say here. Okay, we say if the value is equal to null, or like empty. Oh, wait, I made a mistake here. See, syntactical errors. You gotta say that's on, because we're talking about an event listener of click. I had written O, so you really gotta be careful when you're rebuilding the website. Again, if I hit submit, it says the select input cannot be empty. We gotta fill this out with something. Select say value 2, and if we hit submit, then everything is working. So this was just a little intro to how jQuery actually works. jQuery is a lot more. It makes things such as animations especially easy in JavaScript, because just the amount of code that is used for some aspects of JavaScript is just too much. And simply using jQuery makes it easier, makes it shorter, makes it neater code. So make sure to check out jQuery. It's really going to help you with your JavaScript code. It's going to make it less boring. You don't have to write document.getElementById or like document.querySelector all the time. And you can just use a dollar sign instead. jQuery together with JavaScript makes a very powerful combination. Uh, but keep this in mind that jQuery is kind of a dying language. It's kind of a dying library. So, which is why we're going to discuss something like React or Vue.js in the near future, which are kind of replacing things like jQuery these days. They are declarative, they are modern, they are beautiful. But jQuery is a great start, so make sure to learn it and make sure to use it a little so that you can get used to how it works. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care.